Some of the most profound ideas were born from late-night wonder. For over 2,000 years, one man's restless mind has shaped how we think about reality itself. That man was Plato, the original bedtime thinker, and his philosophical adventures gave us the very foundations of Western thought. By the end of this, you will see the world not as a collection of random objects, but as a shadow of something far more perfect and eternal. We will uncover why he believed our world is just a copy of a higher reality, and what a story about prisoners in a cave reveals about your own perception. What is one belief you hold about the world that might just be a shadow on the wall? Athens was a city of dazzling intellect and brutal conflict. Plato grew up in the shadow of a devastating war, a decades-long struggle with Sparta that left his home physically battered and spiritually exhausted. The grand ideals of Athenian democracy seemed to crumble in the face of betrayal, plague, and final defeat. This was a world where the powerful shifted allegiances overnight and truth felt like a negotiable commodity. Amid this chaos, one man stood as a beacon of unwavering reason, Plato's mentor, Socrates. You would find him in the marketplace, not selling goods, but challenging the very ideas of the politicians and poets, asking simple, profound questions that exposed how little anyone truly knew. He became a hero to the city's thoughtful youth, but a dangerous irritant to those in power. Their response was swift and severe. The Athenian democracy, the very system meant to embody justice, put Socrates on trial for corrupting the young and disrespecting the gods. Plato was there in the courtroom. He watched the proceedings, heard the arguments, and witnessed the ultimate, heartbreaking outcome. His beloved teacher was condemned to die, forced to drink a cup of poisonous hemlock. This single event shattered Plato's faith in the political world. If a just man could be killed so unjustly, then the society that condemned him must be deeply flawed, a realm of shifting shadows where true justice could not live. It was this profound disillusionment, this collision of a brilliant mind with a broken world, that sent Plato on his great philosophical quest. He became convinced that the answers to life's biggest questions could not be found in the messy, unreliable realm of human affairs. He began a search for something solid, something perfect and unchanging, a reality that could not be corrupted by war or killed by a vote. The fleeting, painful world around him only pushed him further toward the eternal. Plato did not just admire Socrates from a distance. He carried the man's voice with him for the rest of his life, making him the star of nearly everything he ever wrote. Think of it, a writer so devoted to his teacher that he turns him into the central character of his entire philosophical legacy. This is why we meet Socrates on page after page of Plato's works, always in conversation, always asking those deceptively simple questions. The dialogue was not just a literary style, it was a tribute, a way to keep his teacher's spirit alive and arguing. We hear Socrates chatting with a young soldier about the nature of courage, or gently probing a proud politician to define justice, only to reveal that the politician has no real idea what the word means. These are not dry philosophical texts, they are dramatic scripts full of personality and tension, where the pursuit of truth feels like a live event. You can almost hear the dust of the Athenian marketplace under their sandals and feel the uncomfortable silence that follows a particularly piercing question. This method, the Socratic method, was a kind of intellectual surgery. Socrates never lectured, he asked. He would start with a common belief, something everyone took for granted, like what makes a person brave. Then, through a series of careful questions, he would guide his partner to see the contradictions in their own thinking. It was not about proving them wrong, but about leading them to a place of productive confusion, a state where real learning could begin. He called this admitting ignorance the first step toward true wisdom. For Plato, this was everything. His entire written world is a testament to the power of conversation over declaration, of inquiry over dogma. He was showing us that truth is not a static thing to be possessed, but a living goal to be pursued together through reason and respectful challenge. The death of Socrates was the ultimate betrayal by the world of appearances, the world of political power and popular opinion. But in his writings, Plato gave his teacher the last word, an eternal voice that continues to question us, to unsettle our certainties even 2 millennia later. The execution of Socrates did not destroy Plato's faith in reason, but it did redirect it. He realized that changing the world required more than questioning individuals in the marketplace. It demanded a sanctuary, a dedicated space where minds could be trained to see beyond the shadows. So, on the outskirts of Athens, he founded a school within a grove of olive trees sacred to a legendary hero named Academus. This place, simply called the Academy, became the world's first university. It was not a single building but a sprawling campus of gardens and walkways, a physical realm dedicated entirely to the life of the mind. For the first time in history, a community was formed with the explicit purpose of pursuing knowledge for its own sake, free from the immediate pressures of politics and commerce. The curriculum was revolutionary. Students did not simply memorize facts or learn a trade. They engaged in a rigorous program of dialectic, the art of logical discussion and debate that Plato learned from Socrates. They studied mathematics not as a calculation tool, but as a gateway to pure, abstract truth. Geometry was essential, training the mind to reason about perfect forms like circles and triangles that the physical world could only approximate. Astronomy was not just charting stars, but contemplating the eternal, orderly motions of the heavens. Every subject was a stepping stone, a discipline designed to turn the soul's gaze away from the fleeting world of the senses and toward the unchanging realm of true reality. The Academy's influence stretched far beyond its tranquil groves. Its most famous student was a young man from northern Greece named Aristotle, who would study there for 20 years before founding his own rival school. The intellectual lineage that began with Plato and Aristotle would shape the entire course of Western science, politics, and philosophy. For 9 centuries, through the rise and fall of empires, the Academy endured as a beacon of systematic inquiry. Its very existence gave us the concept of an academic community, a place where the most fundamental questions about existence, justice, and the cosmos are not just permitted, but are the entire point. But why did Plato choose to write this way? He could have laid out his grand theories in straightforward essays, a list of facts and conclusions for students to memorize. Instead, he built philosophical playgrounds. The dialogue form was his masterstroke, a literary engine designed to do more than just inform. It was built to transform the reader from a passive recipient of information into an active participant in a search for truth. When you open a Platonic dialogue, you are not being lectured at. You are being invited to pull up a stool in that Athenian marketplace and listen in. You hear the hesitant answers, the confident rebuttals, the long pauses as someone realizes their most cherished belief is built on sand. This format perfectly mirrors the live, unpredictable energy of a Socratic conversation. You, the reader, become the silent partner in the discussion, your own mind quietly answering Socrates' questions, testing the logic, and feeling the same intellectual unease that precedes a genuine insight. It makes philosophy feel less like a settled doctrine and more like a shared late-night exploration, the kind of deep talk where time seems to stop. This approach also allows Plato to present multiple sides of a complex issue without forcing a simple answer. Often, the dialogues end in a state of aporia, a graceful admission of puzzlement. The characters have not found the final definition of courage or piety, but they have thoroughly cleared away their mistaken assumptions. They end wiser because they now understand the depth of their own ignorance. Plato understood that the most profound truths resist neat packaging. By showing the messy, human process of thinking things through, with all its false starts and revisions, he honors the complexity of reality itself. His works are not philosophical sermons, they are intricate maps of a mind in motion, and they ask you to take the journey for yourself. This search for a perfect, unchanging reality led Plato to a conclusion that still bends our minds today. He proposed that the world we experience through our senses is not the real world at all. It is a flawed copy, a flickering shadow of a far more real and perfect dimension. He called this the theory of forms. Think about a simple bed. You have seen countless beds in your life, from a child's rickety bunk bed to a luxurious king-size model. Each one is different, made of different materials, and each will eventually break, rot, or go out of style. They are all temporary and imperfect, but in your mind you hold the idea, the perfect concept of what a bed is. This ideal bed, the one that defines the function and essence of all beds, is what Plato called the form of the bed. It exists not in a showroom, but in a realm of pure ideas, eternal and unchanging. It is the perfect blueprint that every physical bed tries and fails to imitate. This principle applies to everything, not just objects. Take something abstract like justice. We see countless examples of what people call justice in our courtrooms and daily lives, but these are often flawed, biased, or incomplete. They are shadows. Plato argued that a perfect, absolute form of justice exists. Our human attempts are just pale reflections of that divine ideal. The same goes for beauty, courage, and even geometric shapes. You can draw a circle on a piece of paper, but its line will have tiny bumps and imperfections. It is not a true circle. The perfect circle, the one with every point exactly equidistant from the center, exists only as a form, a concept graspable by the mind but unreachable by the hand. This is the core of his breathtaking vision. The messy, decaying, beautiful world we live in is a world of becoming where things are always changing. The realm of forms is a world of being where truth and perfection simply are forever. Our physical senses show us the shadows on the cave wall. It is only through reason, through the kind of philosophical training his academy offered, that we can turn around and glimpse the true objects casting those shadows. But how do you explain such a radical idea to someone who has never known anything but shadows? Plato offers us a story, a thought experiment of stunning power and darkness. He asks you to envision a group of people living in an underground cave. These prisoners have been there since birth, chained in such a way that they can only look straight ahead at a blank wall. Behind them, a fire burns, and between the fire and the prisoners, people walk back and forth carrying various objects. The prisoners cannot see these people or the objects themselves. All they ever see are the shadows cast upon the wall, and all they ever hear are the echoes of voices bouncing off the cave. For these prisoners, the shadows are not representations of reality. They are reality. Their entire world consists of these flickering, silent shapes. They would name the shadows, discuss them, and pride themselves on recognizing which shadow would appear next. They are completely unaware of the three-dimensional world behind them that gives the shadows their form. This is the human condition, according to Plato. We are those prisoners, mistaking the sensory world of change and decay for the only reality that exists. The shadows on the wall are the things we see and touch, the temporary pleasures and pains we believe are all there is. Then Plato introduces a moment of liberation. Imagine one prisoner is suddenly freed from his chains. He is forced to stand up, to turn around, and to walk toward the fire. At first, the light hurts his eyes. The figures and objects themselves are confusing and painful to look at after a lifetime of watching only their dim outlines. He would be disoriented, even angry. He might believe the shadows were far clearer and more real than these strange, solid things. This is the initial struggle of education, the painful confusion that comes when our most basic assumptions are challenged. But then he is dragged further out of the cave and into the sunlight. The world outside is blinding. He cannot see anything at first. Slowly, his eyes adjust. He sees reflections in water, then the objects themselves, then the moon and stars in the night sky. Finally, he is able to look upon the sun itself, not just its reflection, but the source of all light, the thing that makes sight possible. He understands that the sun is the cause of everything he has ever seen, both in the real world and back in the cave. This is the journey of the philosopher, the ascent from a world of illusion to a comprehension of the true forms, with the form of the good, the ultimate source of all reality and truth represented by the sun. He has achieved enlightenment, but the story does not end there. Plato forces us to consider a difficult question. What happens when this enlightened prisoner, filled with pity for his former companions, returns to the dark cave? His eyes are now accustomed to the sunlight, so he stumbles in the darkness. He can no longer see the shadows on the wall as clearly as the other prisoners. When he tries to explain the glorious world outside, they think he has returned with ruined eyesight and dangerous ideas. They ridicule him. If he persisted in trying to free them, Plato suggests they would seize him and kill him. This is a clear echo of Socrates' fate, but it also defines the philosopher's burden. True enlightenment carries a responsibility to return to the communal cave, to engage with the world of politics and human affairs, and to guide others toward the light, even at great personal risk. It is not enough to simply know the truth. One must have the courage to share it. That same prisoner, stumbling back into the darkness of the cave, faced a conflict far greater than the chains on his ankles. He was now at war with himself, torn between the blissful truth of the sun and the painful duty to his companions. For Plato, this internal struggle was not just a dramatic moment in a story. It was the fundamental architecture of the human soul. He envisioned our inner world not as a single voice, but as a constant, dynamic conversation between three distinct parts. The first is the rational part, what he called logos. This is the charioteer of the mind, the part that seeks truth, plans for the long term, and understands the greater good. It is the voice that, upon seeing a delicious but unhealthy meal, reminds you of your long-term health goals. The second part is the spirited part, or thumos. This is our emotional engine, the source of our courage, ambition, and righteous indignation. It is the part that feels a surge of pride when we stand up for someone being treated unfairly, or the competitive fire that drives us to win a difficult game. It is not inherently good or bad, but a powerful force of will that can be harnessed. The third part is the appetitive part, epithumia. This is our most basic driver, concerned with primal desires like hunger, thirst, physical pleasure, and the acquisition of material possessions. It is the part that craves that unhealthy meal, yearns for more money, or seeks immediate comfort. Plato did not see these desires as evil. He saw them as a powerful, often unruly pair of horses that need guidance. True justice and happiness, he argued, are not about eliminating any part of this trio, but about establishing the right hierarchy. A just soul is one where the rational charioteer, logos, is firmly in control. With clear sight and wisdom, it guides the spirited horse, thumos, channeling its courage and ambition toward noble goals. Together, the charioteer and the spirited horse then manage the appetitive horse, allowing it to fulfill its necessary desires but preventing it from running wild and dragging the entire chariot off a cliff. When this harmony is achieved, the individual experiences inner peace. They are not torn apart by conflicting impulses. Their actions align with their true understanding of the good. Think of a time you had to make a difficult but ethical decision. The appetitive part might have screamed for the easy, self-serving option. The spirited part might have flared with anger or pride. But your rational mind, if it was in charge, weighed all the factors and chose the path of integrity. That feeling of quiet conviction afterward, that is the sound of a soul in harmony. This internal order is the microcosm of a just society. A city, for Plato, is simply the soul writ large, and the peace we seek in the world begins with the order we cultivate within ourselves. The harmony of a just soul finds its echo in the structure of a just city. This conviction led Plato to propose one of the most radical and controversial ideas in political history, the rule of the philosopher king. He argued that the only person truly qualified to lead a society is someone who has escaped the cave, someone whose eyes have adjusted to the sun of the forms. Why would he make such a bold claim? Think back to the divided soul. A city, for Plato, is simply an individual soul projected onto a massive scale. The appetitive part of society is the productive class, the farmers, artisans, and merchants who drive the economy. The spirited part is the guardian class, the soldiers and auxiliaries who protect the state with courage and discipline, and the rational part, that must be the ruling class. But for Plato, this was not about birthright or wealth. It was about a specific, hard-won knowledge. The ruler must possess a deep understanding of the form of the good, just as the freed prisoner understood the sun. Without this knowledge, a leader is just another prisoner in the cave, expertly guessing which shadow will appear next but having no clue about the real objects behind them. They are navigating by opinion, not truth. This is the core of Plato's profound skepticism of Athenian democracy. He saw it not as the rule of the people, but as the rule of popular opinion, the rule of the shadows. In a democracy, the most persuasive speaker, the one who best appeals to the crowd's fleeting desires and fears, gains power. But what if the crowd is mistaken? What if their understanding of justice is just a shadow on the wall? A skilled demagogue could whip up the appetites and spirited emotions of the public, leading the entire city toward a disastrous choice, much like an individual's soul is ruined when base desires override reason. He had seen this tragedy firsthand in the trial and execution of Socrates, the wisest of men, condemned by a democratic vote. For Plato, entrusting the ship of state to a captain chosen by popular acclaim, rather than to the one who truly understands navigation, stars, and storms, was a recipe for shipwreck. The philosopher king, therefore, is not a power-hungry tyrant. They are a reluctant ruler. Having seen the sun, their greatest desire is to remain in its light, contemplating eternal truths. But their very knowledge of the good compels them to return to the cave. They govern not for personal gain, but out of a duty to create a society that mirrors the harmony and order of the cosmos itself. Their rule is grounded in a reality beyond the poles and the passions of the moment, aimed at guiding every citizen as much as possible toward their own flourishing and the good of the whole. It is an austere and demanding ideal, a vision of leadership where power is inseparable from wisdom and selfless responsibility. Plato pushes this question of inner justice to its absolute limit with a story that feels ripped from a modern fantasy novel. He tells us about a shepherd named Gyges who discovers a mysterious ring after an earthquake opens a chasm in the earth. This is no ordinary piece of jewelry. When Gyges twists the ring's bezel, he becomes completely invisible. With this new power, he does not use it for good. He seduces the queen, conspires with her to murder the king, and seizes the throne for himself. Now Plato asks us a deeply unsettling question. What would you do with such a ring? If you could act without any fear of being caught or punished, would you still choose to be a good person? Would you resist the temptation to take what you want, to eavesdrop on private conversations, or to settle old scores without consequence? This is the ultimate test of character, stripping away all external rewards and punishments to see what remains of our morality when no one is watching. Most people, if they are honest, might admit that the temptation would be overwhelming. We follow laws and social rules largely because we fear the consequences of breaking them, from a speeding ticket to social ostracism. But Plato, through the voice of Socrates, argues for a far more radical idea. He claims that a truly just person would not use the ring, even if they could get away with anything. Why? Because injustice does its deepest damage not to society, but to the soul of the unjust person. remember the three parts of the soul: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. When a person acts unjustly, they are allowing their appetites to run wild, trampling over their own reason and corrupting their spirit. They might gain a kingdom like Gyges, but internally they create chaos. They become a tyrant to themselves, a slave to their own worst impulses. The person who remains just, even with the ring in their pocket, is not a fool. They are the one who understands that inner harmony, the peace that comes from a soul in balance, is a reward far greater than any stolen treasure or illicit power. For Plato, justice is not a social contract we uphold out of fear. It is a state of psychological health, the intrinsic good of a well-ordered soul. So the next time you find yourself alone, with no one around to see your actions, ask yourself not what you can get away with, but who you truly are when the lights are off. Your answer might just reveal how far you have journeyed out of your own cave. This journey from the inner self to the ideal city leads us to one of Plato's most beautiful and misunderstood ideas, the concept of love itself. We often use the term Platonic to mean a friendship without romance, but for Plato, this was a shallow shadow of a much grander reality. True Platonic love is not the absence of attraction, but its transformation into a powerful spiritual and philosophical force. It begins, as many things do, with a simple physical attraction to a beautiful body. This initial spark of desire is not something to be ashamed of, but rather a first step on a magnificent ladder. That attraction can awaken you to a deeper realization that beauty is not confined to a single person. You start to see beauty everywhere, in many different forms and many different souls. The love for one beautiful body becomes an appreciation for beautiful minds, for noble characters, and for the harmony in a well-lived life. Your focus shifts from the physical container to the profound beauty of what it contains. The ascent continues upward. You begin to recognize a different kind of beauty, one found in institutions, in just laws, and in elegant mathematical proofs. You fall in love with the beauty of a society that functions with order and compassion, and with the timeless beauty of a true idea. This is not a rejection of the personal, but an expansion of it, where your capacity for love grows to encompass the entire world of human achievement and knowledge. The final, breathtaking step is the ultimate realization. After training your soul to perceive beauty in its many reflections, you are finally prepared to comprehend the source. You grasp the form of beauty itself, absolute and eternal, the perfect essence that every beautiful person, every beautiful action, and every beautiful idea merely hints at. This is the ultimate object of Platonic love, a reality so sublime that it transforms the lover forever. In this light, every instance of beauty we encounter in our daily lives becomes a divine reminder, a whisper from a higher realm inviting us to look up and remember where we truly belong. Yet this profound vision of love and justice demanded an ultimate foundation, a reason for choosing the good that extended beyond a single lifetime. To answer this, Plato concludes his great work, The Republic, not with a dry philosophical proof, but with a sweeping mythological epic, the story of a soldier named fell in battle, but his body did not decay. After 12 days, he awoke on his funeral pyre with an incredible tale to tell. His soul, he claimed, had journeyed to a place of divine judgment. There he witnessed the souls of the dead being sent along two paths, one leading upward into the heavens for a life of virtue, the other descending into the earth for a life of injustice. The message was clear: every action has its eternal consequence, but the most astonishing part of the journey was yet to come. After 1,000 years of reward or punishment, the souls gathered in a vast, mystical meadow for the most critical moment of all, the choice of their next life. The fates laid out before them countless patterns of existence, lives of every conceivable kind. There were lives of famous rulers and obscure beggars, lives of brilliant artists and simple farmers, even the lives of animals. The choice was entirely their own, and here Plato reveals his deepest psychological insight. the souls who had just returned from 1,000 years of heavenly comfort, having been rewarded for a virtuous life that was often lived by habit or custom, often chose poorly. They picked lives of glittering tyranny, drawn to power without understanding its inner corruption. Meanwhile, souls who had suffered for their injustices in the underworld, having learned from their punishment, frequently selected more wisely, choosing humble just lives. The soul of the great hero Ajax, for instance, still bitter from his past life, chose the life of a lion, refusing to be a human ever again. The soul of Odysseus, weary of ambition and struggle, searched long and hard until he found the neglected life of a common private man and chose it with joy. The tragedy was that the choice was final and irrevocable. Once a soul selected its new life, it was led to the plain of forgetfulness, to drink from the river of unmindfulness, and then hurled back into the world of the living to begin anew, carrying the consequences of a choice made in a state of confused desire. The purpose of this grand myth was not to provide a literal map of the afterlife, but to serve as the ultimate moral incentive. It places the entire weight of your destiny squarely on your own shoulders. Your judgment is not about appeasing angry gods, but about the natural consequence of how you have shaped your own character. And your next life is not assigned to you by a capricious fate, but is a direct result of the wisdom or lack of wisdom you cultivate now. This is philosophy, religion, and storytelling woven into a single, powerful tapestry. It answers the challenge of Gyges' ring by showing that the stakes are infinitely higher than getting away with a crime. They are about the very quality of your soul for all its future existences. The myth asks us a haunting question that echoes long after the story ends. When your turn comes to choose from the patterns of lives, what will your past actions have prepared you to see? But how can a soul remember what it has never learned? This question lies at the heart of Plato's most radical answer to the problem of knowledge. He watched people gather information through their senses, seeing, touching, and hearing the world, and he found this method utterly unreliable. Our eyes can be tricked by a mirage, our ears by a distant echo. The senses show us only the ever-changing world of becoming, the world of shadows. They cannot show us the eternal truth of a geometric proof or the perfect definition of justice. This led him to reject pure empiricism, the idea that all knowledge comes solely from sensory experience. For Plato, the senses were not the source of knowledge, but merely the trigger. True knowledge was not something poured into an empty mind from the outside. It was a process of recollection, a remembering of what our immortal souls had already witnessed directly in the realm of forms before our birth. He called this concept anamnesis. To prove this startling idea, he offers a stunning demonstration in the dialogue Meno. Socrates is speaking with an uneducated slave boy, a young man who has never been taught a single lesson in geometry. Through a series of simple questions, Socrates guides the boy to discover for himself how to double the area of a square. He does not give him the answer. He merely asks, and the boy, after some wrong turns, arrives at the correct geometrical truth entirely from within his own mind. The knowledge was not implanted by Socrates. It was already there, lying dormant, waiting to be awakened by the right line of questioning. This is the power of the Socratic method, and for Plato, it was the ultimate evidence that learning is remembering. The perfect square, the one the boy reasoned about, does not exist in our flawed world. You can draw one, but its lines will have microscopic imperfections. The boy was not recalling a square he had seen. He was recollecting the perfect form of a square, a truth his soul had known all along. This transforms the entire purpose of education. A teacher is not a bucket filling an empty vessel, but a midwife helping to deliver knowledge that is already pregnant within the student. Every time you have a sudden flash of insight, that aha moment where a complex idea suddenly clicks into place, you are not just learning something new. You are, in a very real sense, remembering something your soul has always known. This invisible line in Plato's mind became his master diagram of existence itself. He asks us to envision a single line divided unequally into 4 distinct segments, each representing a different level of reality and a different way of knowing it. At the very bottom, the shortest and dimmest segment, is the world of images and illusions, what he called Ikasia. This is the state of mind of the prisoners staring at the cave wall, completely absorbed in shadows and reflections. They believe the flickering images are the whole of reality, and their understanding is based purely on conjecture and guesswork. The objects here are not real things, but copies of copies, like seeing a photograph of a chair and thinking that is all a chair can be. Just above this, in a slightly longer segment, we find the world of physical objects and belief pistis. Here, we have escaped the cave wall and are now interacting with the actual 3-dimensional objects that cast the shadows. This is the realm of our everyday lives, the world of trees, rocks, and other people. Our relationship to this world is one of belief. We see a tree and we believe it is real. We trust our senses, but we do not yet understand its essential nature, its perfect form. We are dealing with the real things, but our knowledge of them is still based on sensory experience, which is always shifting and unreliable. Now the line makes a crucial leap. The upper, larger half of the line represents the intelligible world, the realm of true reality accessible only to the mind. Its first segment is the world of mathematical and logical reasoning, dianoia. Here, the mind uses physical diagrams or numbers as stepping stones to grasp abstract truths. A geometer draws a triangle on sand, a flawed physical representation, but uses it to reason about the perfect, eternal form of a triangle. The mind is operating logically, but it still depends on those visible aids and hypotheses it takes for granted. It knows 2 plus 2 equals 4, and it can build complex systems from that starting point, but it does not yet question the foundational truth of the number 2 itself. At the very top of the line, in the highest and brightest segment, resides pure understanding, gnosis. This is the ultimate goal of the philosopher's journey. Here, the mind moves beyond diagrams and hypotheses entirely. It engages in direct, intuitive knowledge of the forms themselves, comprehending the perfect form of justice, the form of beauty, and ultimately the form of the good, the sun that illuminates all other truths. This is not a process of step-by-step logic, but a sudden, brilliant insight, a state of wisdom where the soul grasps the first principles of everything without the need for any physical crutches. The divided line is not just a static chart. It is a map for the ascent of the soul, a guide for turning our understanding away from the world of becoming and toward the world of being. Each step upward represents a liberation from a lesser reality to a greater one, until we finally see by the light of the sun itself. Plato's vision of a harmonious society came with a startling demand, one that still shocks us today. He argued that in his ideal city, most poets and artists would have to be banished. This was not a call for censorship born of prudishness, but a philosophical conclusion rooted in his entire view of reality. Remember the divided line and the theory of forms. The ultimate reality is the perfect, unchanging world of forms. A carpenter, when he builds a bed, is looking toward the form of the bed, trying his best to create a physical copy of that perfect idea. His bed is already one step removed from true reality, an imperfect imitation of the perfect form. Now consider a painter who comes along and paints a picture of that same bed. The painter is not looking at the form itself, he is looking at the carpenter's flawed, physical copy. His artwork is therefore an imitation of an imitation, a copy of a copy, placing it 2 steps away from the truth. It is a shadow of a shadow. For Plato, this made art a form of deception, however beautiful it might appear. A painting of a bed can never be used for rest. It only gives the illusion of a bed. Art trades in illusions, and for a philosopher seeking absolute truth, this was a dangerous distraction. But the problem went deeper than mere metaphysical distance. Art, especially the powerful poetry and drama of his time, spoke directly to the lowest part of the soul. Think back to the three parts: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. A tragic play does not appeal to our cool, calculating reason. It deliberately stirs up our emotions, our grief, our fear, our passions. It makes us weep for a fictional character, indulging in emotions that our rational mind would tell us to keep in check. In doing so, it strengthens the appetitive and spirited parts of the soul, upsetting the delicate inner harmony where reason should rule. If you spend an afternoon at a theater lost in a drama of rage and revenge, you are not training your mind to seek the form of justice. You are feeding the part of you that is already prone to irrational outbursts. This emotional indulgence weakens the citizen's character, making them less fit for the disciplined, reasoned life required in the just state. A society that glorifies the emotional turmoil of its heroes is a society training its citizens to be unstable. The philosopher king who has gazed upon the sun has no need for these flickering shadows. He understands that true goodness and beauty are found in the forms, not in their pale, distorted reflections. To allow artists to fill the city with their imitations would be to chain the population back to the cave wall, convincing them that the shadows were the most exciting and important things to watch. So the banishment of the poets was, for Plato, a painful but necessary act of civic hygiene, a way to protect the souls of the people from falsehood and emotional corruption. It forces us to ask a difficult question about our own world, saturated with images and stories. Are we nourishing our souls with truth, or are we merely enjoying the most captivating shadows ever made? Plato's shadow stretches across the centuries, a vast and inescapable presence. His ideas did not remain locked away in the Athenian groves, but flowed outward like a great river, branching into every corner of Western culture. His most immediate and formidable student was Aristotle, who walked the grounds of the academy for 20 years. Yet Aristotle's mind was built for a different kind of inquiry. Where Plato looked upward to a perfect realm of forms, Aristotle turned his gaze downward to the messy, particular world of things. He argued that form and matter are inseparable, that the essence of a tree is found within the tree itself, not in some heavenly blueprint. This fundamental disagreement, the clash between the idealist and the empiricist, set the stage for a debate that would energize philosophy for the next 2,000 years. It was a debate born within the same school, a testament to the power of the environment Plato had created. Centuries later, in the declining days of the Roman Empire, a new school of thought arose called Neoplatonism. Its greatest voice, Plotinus, took Plato's sunlit realm of forms and made it even more transcendent and mystical. He spoke of the One, an indescribable source of all existence from which everything else emanated, like light radiating from an invisible star. This spiritualized Plato provided a powerful language for the early Christian theologians who were then grappling with how to explain their own faith. Saint Augustine, before his conversion to Christianity, was a Neoplatonist. It was through the writings of Plotinus that he first conceived of a spiritual, non-physical reality, a God who was the ultimate source of all truth and goodness. He famously declared that Plato's philosophy, with its realm of eternal truths, was the one system most compatible with Christian doctrine, needing only a change of terms to align. The form of the good became God, and the soul's ascent from the cave became the journey of salvation. Even the scientific revolution, which seems so opposed to Plato's idealism, carries his imprint. When Galileo proclaimed that the book of nature is written in the language of mathematics, he was echoing Plato's belief that the physical world is an expression of perfect geometric forms. He was looking for the intelligible structure behind the visible chaos, a fundamentally Platonic quest. In our own time, the questions he raised still pulse at the heart of our greatest discussions. The entire field of computer science, with its reliance on perfect, abstract code that runs on imperfect physical hardware, is a living demonstration of the relationship between the realm of forms and the world of becoming. Every time you question whether a politician is telling the truth or merely manipulating shadows on the wall, you are walking in the footsteps of Socrates. Our search for objective justice, our longing for a beauty that is more than skin deep, our nagging sense that this world is not the whole story, all of these are Platonic yearnings. He gave us the vocabulary and the maps for a journey we are all still on, a perpetual bedtime for thinkers that never truly ends. The student who would challenge Plato's entire world, you arrived at the academy as a young man from the northern frontier. His name was Aristotle, and he would study there for 2 decades, absorbing every lesson before stepping out to build a philosophical system of his own. This was not a simple disagreement, it was a fundamental split over the nature of reality itself, a philosophical rift that still defines how we see the world. Where Plato looked up, Aristotle looked down. Plato's gaze was fixed on the perfect, sunlit realm of the forms. He saw the messy physical world as a collection of flawed copies, shadows on a cave wall that distracted us from true reality. For him, knowledge was a process of remembering what our immortal souls already knew from a time before birth. The ultimate source of truth was internal, a matter of turning the soul inward through reason and dialectic. Aristotle, with the keen eye of a biologist's son, found this explanation unsatisfying. He pointed to a simple, sturdy table. Plato would say its true reality is the perfect, eternal form of the table, existing in a dimension we cannot touch. Aristotle asked, "Where is this perfect table? Can you show it to me?" He argued that the forms are not floating in a heavenly realm. They are right here, baked into the very stuff of the world. The form of the table and the wood it is made from are inseparable. You cannot have tableness without a table. This is the core of their split, idealism versus empiricism. Plato's starting point was the perfect idea. Aristotle's starting point was the tangible thing right in front of him. This led to 2 entirely different methods for finding truth. Plato trusted the mind above all. Aristotle trusted the senses when used carefully. He believed all knowledge begins with our experience of the world. We see many different tables. Our minds identify the common qualities that make them all tables, and we abstract the concept of tableness from that observation. Knowledge is not recollection, it is a careful process of induction, moving from specific examples to general principles. Think of it as 2 different paths to understanding a tree. Plato would have you close your eyes and contemplate the perfect, ideal tree, the essence of all treeness. Aristotle would have you walk into the forest, touch the bark, examine the leaves, study how it grows from a seed, and classify it based on its specific characteristics. One seeks to escape the cave to find truth. The other insists the truth is all around us, waiting to be categorized and understood. This fundamental disagreement echoes through the ages. It is the debate between the mathematician who discovers a timeless equation and the physicist who tests it through experiment. It is the tension between the visionary who dreams of a perfect society and the engineer who builds a functional bridge. We are all inheritors of this ancient conversation, constantly navigating the space between the ideal world we can imagine and the real world we must live in. This philosophical rift was not the end of the story, but a branching of the river. Centuries after Aristotle, in the intellectual twilight of the Roman Empire, Plato's ideas underwent a profound and mystical rebirth. A philosopher named Plotinus retreated from the crumbling public world, much like Plato had, and began to teach a system of thought so spiritually intense it would come to be known as Neoplatonism. He took Plato's sunlit realm of forms and pushed it to its ultimate, breathtaking conclusion. For Plotinus, the ultimate reality was not a collection of perfect ideas, but a single, indescribable source he called the One. This was not a god in a human form, nor a being that could be understood by logic or language. The One was beyond all thought and all existence, the infinite fountain from which everything else spontaneously overflowed, not through any act of will, but through a necessary and radiant emanation, like light pouring endlessly from a sun that never dims. The first thing to emanate from this silent source was divine mind or nous. This is where Plato's world of perfect forms finds its home, not as separate ideas, but as a unified, living intelligence contemplating all of reality at once. From this mind then emanates the world soul, the animating principle that breathes life and order into the physical cosmos, shaping matter according to the perfect patterns held within the divine mind. This cosmic hierarchy created a grand staircase for the human soul. Our deepest yearning, according to Plotinus, is not merely for knowledge but for union. We are like scattered rays of light that long to return to their original sun. The entire purpose of life becomes a mystical ascent, a turning away from the distractions of the physical body, and a journey inward and upward through contemplation toward an ecstatic reunion with the One. He described this ultimate experience as a flight of the alone to the alone, a state beyond thought where the soul does not understand the source but becomes one with it. This was no longer just philosophy. It was a roadmap for transcendence, and when a young North African rhetorician named Augustine was wrestling with his own spiritual turmoil, it was the writings of the Neoplatonists that provided the key. Their vision of a transcendent, immaterial reality gave him the intellectual framework to conceive of the Christian God as a spiritual, rather than a physical, being. He famously wrote that in these books he found the concept of the Logos, the divine word, but not the humility of its incarnation. He took the Neoplatonic structure of emanation, the descent from the One into the world, and reframed it as the creative act of a personal God. The soul's ascent back to the One became, for Augustine and countless Christian mystics after him, the journey of salvation and the soul's return to its maker. This spiritualized Plato did not fade with the ancient world. 1,000 years later, during the Renaissance, scholars rediscovered these original Greek texts, and Neoplatonism flared back into brilliance. Artists and thinkers like Marsilio Ficino saw the entire universe as a vast, interconnected hierarchy of beauty, emanating from God and descending through angels, stars, and humans, down to the lowest forms of matter. For them, to create a beautiful painting or sculpture was not to make a deceitful shadow, as the older Plato feared. It was to participate in the divine mind, to channel a fragment of that celestial beauty back into the world, using physical form to guide the soul back toward its spiritual home. The cave was no longer a prison to escape, but a cathedral filled with stained glass windows, each one a beautiful, imperfect reflection of a light too brilliant to behold directly. That river of Platonic thought flowing through the mystics and the scholars did not dry up. It waited, a dormant current beneath the rigid surface of medieval thought, until a single spark could set it ablaze once more. That spark arrived in the 15th century in the city of Florence with a man named Marsilio Ficino. Under the generous patronage of the powerful Cosimo de' Medici, Ficino was given a monumental task to translate all of Plato's works directly from Greek into Latin for the first time. This was not merely an academic exercise, it was an intellectual revolution. For centuries, Europe had known Aristotle through the lens of the Church. Now, a new, thrilling voice from antiquity was being heard in its original power, a voice that spoke not of logic and categories, but of love, beauty, and the divine soul. Ficino's translations ignited a fire. He founded the Florentine Platonic Academy, not a formal school with walls, but a vibrant gathering of the city's most brilliant painters, poets, and philosophers. In the villas and gardens of Florence, they did not just study Plato, they celebrated him. They saw in his work a Prisca theologia, an ancient theology that prefigured and harmonized with Christian truth. The human soul, for Ficino, was the center of the universe, the crucial link between the physical world and the divine. This was a new humanism, one that did not reject God, but saw humanity as God's greatest creation, endowed with a soul capable of ascending back to its source. This Platonic spirit breathed life into the very stone and canvas of the Renaissance. look at Sandro Botticelli's most famous works, The Birth of Venus and Primavera. These are not simple pagan scenes, they are visual hymns to Neoplatonic ideals. Venus is not just the goddess of love, she is the embodiment of divine beauty, born from the sea of primordial matter and arriving on a shell to inspire the human world. The figures in Primavera move in a graceful, eternal dance, representing the emanation of celestial beauty into the earthly realm. Every flowing line and delicate face is an attempt to capture a form, to make the invisible world of perfect ideas visible to human eyes. The poet Angelo Poliziano, another member of the circle, wove these same themes into his verses, describing love as a divine force that lifts the soul from the contemplation of a beautiful body to the adoration of God himself. This was the true renaissance of Plato, a fusion of philosophy, art, and spirituality that saw the entire cosmos as a ladder of beauty. The artist's brush was no longer creating a deceitful shadow, but was acting as a bridge, crafting a beautiful object that could, if the viewer's soul was prepared, trigger a recollection of a higher, more perfect reality. The Florentines turned the city itself into a gateway, believing that by surrounding themselves with beauty, they were not just decorating their world but guiding their souls home. But the legacy of a great thinker is often clouded by the very shadows he described. Over the centuries, the sharp contours of Plato's philosophy have been smoothed into popular phrases and simplified ideas that sometimes miss his deeper meaning. Take the term Platonic love, now commonly used to describe a friendship without romance. For Plato, this was merely the first, hesitant step on a magnificent ascent. True Platonic love was a fiery, transformative force that began with physical attraction but ultimately used that spark to launch the soul upward. It was a passionate journey from loving one beautiful body to appreciating beautiful minds, then just laws, and finally the sublime form of beauty itself. To reduce this cosmic ladder of desire to mere non-romantic friendship is to mistake the base of the mountain for its glorious peak. Another common caricature paints Plato as a simple enemy of democracy. The truth is far more nuanced. He was not against the idea of popular rule in principle, but he was terrified of its potential to descend into what he called mob rule. Having witnessed the democratic assembly condemn his wise teacher Socrates to death, he developed a profound skepticism of a system where truth could be outvoted by persuasive rhetoric and popular passion. His critique was not of freedom but of ignorance. He feared a society where the ship of state was steered by whoever was most popular, rather than by those who truly understood navigation. His proposal for a philosopher king was not a call for a tyrant, but for a reluctant ruler, someone who had seen the sun of truth and returned to the cave out of duty, not a thirst for power. He believed leadership should be a burden borne by the wisest, not a prize won by the most charismatic. We also often hear that Plato despised the physical world, urging us to reject it entirely for a realm of pure thought. Yet his allegory of the cave is not an instruction to despise the shadows, but to understand their source. The physical world, for all its imperfections, is the very starting point of our philosophical journey. It is the initial spark of beauty that ignites our love, the flawed circle drawn in sand that points our mind toward geometric perfection. He did not want us to abandon the world, but to see through it, to use it as a lens to focus on a higher reality. These popular simplifications do more than just misrepresent an ancient philosopher. They rob us of the challenging, often uncomfortable, questions he forces us to ask ourselves about love, power, and the nature of our own reality. The next time you hear one of these phrases, remember the deeper story, the long climb out of the cave, and the brilliant, demanding mind that first dared to make it. But what is the stuff of our world if it is merely a flawed copy? Plato offers his answer in one of his most ambitious and enigmatic works, the Timaeus. Here he steps beyond the abstract realm of perfect forms and dares to tell a story about the origin of everything. He introduces a divine craftsman he calls the demiurge, a figure of pure intelligence and benevolence, but not an all-powerful god in the traditional sense. The demiurge finds himself confronted with pre-existing chaos, a formless, chaotic receptacle of space that is in a state of perpetual, disordered motion. This is not creation from nothing, but creation from chaos. The demiurge's great project is to impose order upon this chaos, to shape it into the most beautiful and rational cosmos possible. And how does he do this? He looks toward the eternal and perfect world of the forms, using them as his blueprints. His goal is to craft the physical universe as a living, moving image of that timeless perfection. He is not making a new form, he is sculpting the visible world into the best possible imitation of the forms that it can be. This is why our world, for all its flaws, still exhibits such breathtaking order and beauty, from the predictable motions of the planets to the intricate structure of a snowflake. It is the work of a cosmic artist doing his best with stubborn material. The tools of this divine craftsman are not magic but mathematics. Plato describes the demiurge as binding the world together with geometric proportion. He famously reduces the fundamental elements of earth, air, fire, and water to perfect three-dimensional shapes, the Platonic solids. Fire is a tetrahedron with its sharp points and edges. Earth is a stable cube, air is an octahedron, water an icosahedron. These are not literal chunks of matter, but the invisible, geometric essences that give matter its properties. The entire cosmos, in this view, is a magnificent geometric construction, a universe written in the secret language of mathematics. This single, staggering idea would echo for centuries, inspiring astronomers and physicists to search for the mathematical laws underpinning nature. The dialogue is presented as a likely story, a myth that is the closest a human can come to the truth of cosmic origins. It is philosophy, theology, and proto-science woven into a single, majestic narrative. It asks us to see the universe not as a random accident, but as the product of a rational mind, a cosmos where the hidden order of geometry whispers the secrets of its divine design. This voice that questions us through the ages, the defiant hero of Plato's dialogues, presents us with a profound historical puzzle. How can we be sure that the man speaking to us from the page is the same man who drank the hemlock? Scholars call this the Socratic problem, and it is the great ghost in the machine of ancient philosophy. We have no writings from Socrates himself. Everything we know about him comes filtered through the words of others, primarily his adoring student Plato. So where does the real Socrates end and Plato's philosophical character begin? It is like trying to find the original source of a river after countless tributaries have joined its flow. In the early dialogues, like the apology which recounts Socrates' defense at his trial, the portrait feels more historical. We meet a man who insists he knows nothing, who is primarily focused on ethics, on questioning what makes a good life. He is a moral gadfly stinging the conscience of Athens. But as Plato's own thought matures, the character of Socrates begins to change. In later, more complex works like the Republic, this same Socrates stops just asking questions. He starts building grand, elaborate theories about the soul, politics, and the entire structure of reality, the very theories we now call Platonic. It seems unlikely the historical Socrates, who claimed ignorance, would suddenly proclaim a detailed blueprint for a perfect city or unveil the theory of forms. This is where Plato, the playwright of ideas, seems to be using his old teacher as a powerful literary device. He is putting his own revolutionary ideas into the mouth of his martyred hero, granting them immense authority and a direct link to that unforgettable voice from the marketplace. This is not deception, it is a form of deep philosophical tribute. The uncertainty itself is a clue to Plato's own intellectual journey. The dialogues map the evolution of his mind, from a faithful recorder of his teacher's method to an independent genius building a system of his own. The Socratic problem reminds us that great ideas are rarely born in isolation. They are conversations across time, a student grappling with a teacher's legacy until a new philosophy emerges from the echo of an old, questioning voice. Yet even the most beautiful philosophical system casts its own long shadows. Plato's own arguments contain puzzles so profound they have kept philosophers arguing for 2,000 years. One of the most famous is known as the third man argument, a devastatingly simple critique of his beloved theory of forms. Imagine a man, a normal human being. Plato says this man is a copy of the perfect form of man, but now consider that man and the form of man together. What do they share? They both share the quality of being man-like. So wouldn't there need to be a third thing, a higher form that encompasses both the physical man and the first form of man to explain this shared quality? And then, what about that third form and the first two? Wouldn't they require a fourth form to explain what they all share? This logic creates an infinite regress, a hall of mirrors where a new form is needed for every relationship, multiplying forever and never landing on a single, stable source of truth. It is a paradox that seems to unravel the very fabric of his reality from within, a puzzle Plato himself presented in his dialogue Parmenides, perhaps as a warning about the limits of his own grand vision. Then there is the mystery of the unwritten doctrines. Ancient sources suggest that Plato reserved his most profound and secret teachings for his inner circle at the academy. Ideas he believed were too subtle or too powerful to be trusted to the written word. He reportedly gave a famous lecture on the good that left many in the audience baffled, for he spoke not of morality but of mathematics, identifying the good with a fundamental mathematical principle. What were these hidden teachings? Were they a more complex version of the theory of forms, or something entirely different that we can now only glimpse through fragments and rumors? This secret Plato is a ghost haunting the history of philosophy, a reminder that the texts we have may only be the public face of a much deeper and more mysterious intellectual world. These unresolved questions are not signs of failure. They are the lifeblood of philosophy, the open-ended challenges that prevent Plato's work from becoming a dusty relic. They force us to engage, to argue, and to think for ourselves, ensuring that his voice remains not an answer, but an eternal, compelling question. You can start practicing this philosophy right now, and it begins not with grand answers, but with simple, courageous questions. The first step is to adopt the Socratic method in your own life, turning your inner monologue into a dialogue. Take a belief you hold as obvious, something like success means having a lot of money, or a good friend is someone who always agrees with you. Now become your own Socrates. Ask why you believe that. What does a lot of money actually get you, and does it always lead to happiness? If a friend never challenges you, are they really helping you grow, or are they just a comforting echo? This self-questioning is not about doubting everything into paralysis. It is about clearing away the shaky assumptions, the shadows on your personal cave wall, to make room for a more solid foundation. Your mind is the marketplace, and you are both the questioner and the one being questioned. The goal is to reach that productive state of confusion, where you admit you do not have the final answer, and in that open space true learning can finally begin. Once you have started questioning the shadows, you can train yourself to look for the objects casting them. This is the practice of contemplating the forms in your daily routine. You do not need to retreat to a mountaintop. The next time you see an act of kindness, whether from a stranger or in a news story, do not just note it and move on. Pause for a moment, recognize that this specific, imperfect act is a reflection of something much larger, the ideal form of kindness itself. That fleeting feeling of warmth you get is a hint of a perfect, eternal reality. Apply the same practice to your work. If you are a carpenter, a programmer, or a teacher, consider the perfect version of what you are trying to create. What would a flawless lesson look like? One that truly ignites every mind in the room. By holding that perfect ideal in your mind, even knowing you can never fully reach it, you elevate your own craft. You are no longer just assembling furniture, writing code, or covering a curriculum. You are participating in a timeless pursuit of excellence, aligning your actions with a blueprint of perfection. The final and most personal practice is to tend to the garden of your own soul, seeking that inner harmony Plato described. Think of your last difficult decision, perhaps a moment of temptation or a flash of anger. Which part of you was speaking the loudest? Was it the appetitive part, craving immediate gratification? Was it the spirited part, flaring with pride or indignation? Or was it the rational part, calmly considering the long-term good? The practice of Platonic self-improvement is to consciously place your rational mind in the driver's seat. Before you react, create a small space for that inner charioteer to take the reins. Let it guide your spirited ambition toward noble goals and gently manage your basic desires so they serve you rather than rule you. This is not about suppressing who you are, but about integrating your parts into a harmonious whole. When you feel that quiet conviction after making a choice that aligns with your deepest values, you are experiencing a moment of inner justice. This is the ultimate practical goal, a soul where reason, courage, and desire work in concert, creating a life of purpose and peace that no external turmoil can easily shatter. So where does this grand journey leave us, standing in the flickering light of our own cave? Plato's vast philosophical project, from the perfect forms to the just city, offers us not a set of rigid answers, but a powerful toolkit for living a more examined life. He invites us to trust our reason over the shifting opinions of the crowd, to seek the eternal patterns behind our temporary struggles, and to cultivate an inner harmony where our better judgment guides our actions. His legacy is the enduring conviction that the world we see is not the final reality, that a deeper truth and beauty await just beyond the edge of our perception, accessible to anyone willing to question, to reason, and to ascend. This is his timeless gift to every restless mind trying to find meaning in a noisy world. His work remains a perpetual invitation, a call to venture beyond the comfortable shadows. That journey begins with a single, courageous step. Find a translation of the Apology or the Symposium. Let Socrates' voice question your certainties as you read. Make Plato your next bedtime thinker, and let his ancient, luminous ideas illuminate your own modern nights.